Alright, this is going to be part 3 to What If Female Deku with Xenomorph What If. Now, some of you might be wondering, what about Quetzalcoatl Deku? Well, that's because I haven't seen Fate Grand Order, nor do I know what... Now, I do know that you guys have sent me her fighting styles, but I haven't really seen enough of her fights to get a full grasp on her fighting style. So you guys will get that continuing. It's just on pause right now, okay? Now, I'll also be doing the continuation of the Armored Titan Deku later today as well, so look out for that. Now, we'll begin with where we last left off. I think it was after they've won the Heroes vs. Villains test. Now, I did look in the comments of the last part because I left it for a couple weeks, and the most suggested ship was Mina, so that's going to be the ship for this series. And I did see a ship for Toga as well, but don't worry, since for those of you who wanted Toga to be shipped with Deku, I have another ship planned for Toga because it was suggested as well. If you know what I'm talking, if you look in the comments, you'll know what I'm talking about. Okay. Back to the what if. I've been talking for way too long. Now, we'll pick up where we last left off at the end of the Heroes vs. Villains exam test with Izumi. I think Izumi and everyone else who was in there arriving back at the main area. Alright, hold on. Sorry about that. As I was saying, with all my asking who is the MVP of that match, as one will point out that it was Izumi, due to her due to her using everything in her arsenal of her quirk to be able to beat both Bakugo and I think I had Ida fight them as well. I'm sorry I haven't done this one in a while, so you guys have to correct me on this. So, with that out of the way, their day ends as normal, as both Toga and Izumi begin to walk home. Walk home. With them talking about how their first experiences in the battlefield was, with Toga stating that it was quite stressful, but it was actually pretty fun at the same time, with Izumi stating that she had to go up against Boom Boom Boy as she would explain how her fight against Bakugo went, as Toga would be laughing because she knew that Izumi would have won that fight, as she's just laughing her ass off as she states, Boom Boom Boy, that's really going to be a nickname for you, as Izumi would state, yes it is. It is going to be his nickname, and I don't care what he says about it. With Izumi and Toga getting to their abodes as they would head in as a couple months. I think the USG happens a couple months later, if I remember correctly. So in that time, Toga and Izumi have been training with each other whenever they're not studying and when they have time off. So both of them are a lot stronger now, with them headed to the USG as Sue would ask what Izumi's quirk is, as she states that her quirk is is called xenomorph. As Mina would pipe up and say, like the creature from that movie by Ridley Scott. As Izumi would snap her fingers and say bingo. As she would explain the capabilities that she has and her queen form, with her stating that is taller and twice as and a lot stronger than her. Sorry about that. And twice as strong, is much more stronger than her drone form. Oh wait, I called her a warrior form. As Bakugo would just say, that sounds like a very useless quirk alien. As Izumi would snap back and say, well, it was enough to take you down, so I'm happy with that. As Bakugo would say, what did you say to me? With Mina laughing her ass off as once they arrive at USJ, 13 gives her speech about how quirks can be dangerous and that without proper training, her quirk can easily kill someone. As you say that her quirk Black Hole is what is primarily used for rescuing, but it can also easily kill a person. With as a portal would open, as villains would begin to walk through, as Kirishima would state, wow, you've even got fake villains here? As Aizawa would look down, as he would state, those aren't fake villains, those are real villains. 13 protect the children, as he would dash down to go and fight them. Now, this one is going to be a bit, this USJ incident is going to be a bit different from the normal one. And it's going to have one more villain, and this villain is going to have a very special quirk, which I will reveal later in this video, with Aizawa taking out the villains, but instead with Izumi being teleported to the water area. Now, I know a lot of you will say that Aliens Resurrection, it was a terrible movie, but I'm going to use the xenomorph logic from that state because, as we all know, xenomorphs can't swim, which is the single most terrifying thing on the planet. So yeah, she can swim, as she's swimming around dealing with the villains in her warrior form, with even with Sue and her getting up onto the boat, with them having to come up with a plan of attack and we could get through the villains. As she says, she could quickly shift into her queen state, and Sue, she can actually spray some of her blood into the water, which will raise its alkaline level to about a pH of 2, which, in case some of you don't know, that's about the same level as human stomach acid. Now, this My Hero Academia world is a little bit different from the normal one, because in this one, heroes are allowed to kill villains if they are too dangerous for them to handle through non-lethal ways, with Izumi slashing her hand with her tail and dripping her blood into it, with the villains beginning to dissolve within it as Sue would jump over, as the water would quickly return to a normal pH level of 7. This is why you guys gotta pay attention in chemistry, for those of you who are younger and aren't in high school. As when they arrive there, see Aizawa being beaten down by this villain. Now the Nomu isn't here because the Nomu has not been released yet. Because this villain has a perfect quirk for the occasion. As Izumi would look up and see that this guy has a similar quirk to hers. And instead of him being a xenomorph queen, he is a xenomorph king. Now, for those of you who don't know, the xenomorph king is technically in the Aliens canon, as it was genetically created by Weyland Yutani to be a rival to the queen. As this villain is pounding Aizawa into the ground by slamming him in there, Izumi immediately shifts into her queen form as she would begin to fight that villain. Now, I'll explain what will happen in this fight right now. So, the villain's Xenomorph King build is quite similar to the one where the Xenomorph King was first introduced, with it being quite bulky and not as agile as the Queen. With this villain's fighting style being more akin to a brawler type fighting style rather than specialized like Izumi's. With Izumi basically dancing around this villain and getting in slashes and stabs whenever she can. With the Xenomorph King landing at least one punch on Izumi, which does send her back a bit. With Izumi trying to keep her guard up, as she would be dodging the North King's attacks more and more and more. With her eventually pinning the Xenomorph King down, and is about to use her second mouth, with Shigaraki telling Kurogiri, "Bring in the Nomu." I'm sorry, my Shigaraki voice is cringy. I cannot do voices. As Kurogiri would open up a portal with the Nomu stepping through, as Shigaraki would tell the Nomu to kill her, pointing towards Izumi. With Izumi being too distracted dealing with the king, she doesn't sense that the Nomu is behind her until Mina called it out, but it's a bit too late, with the Nomu landing a punch as Izumi is sent flying as she skids across the ground before coming to an abrupt stop. As Izumi is currently getting up, but staggering a bit. She is basically running off of fumes right now, due to her fight with the Xenomorph King being exhausting. As the Xenomorph King and the Nomu would basically be teaming up at this point to try and kill Izumi. And it gets to the point where they eventually knock Izumi out of her queen state and back into her warrior state, with the Nomu basically grabbing her by the neck and raising her up. And just before the Nomu could finish her off, the door crashes down, with All Might stating that he is here. Just as the Nomu is distracted, Izumi spits some of her blood onto the Nomu, which does dissolve at least half of his face, including some of the brain. As she would basically be let go as the Xenomorph King punches her and basically sends her crashing into the water zone, as she is basically sinking to the bottom. With All Might being enraged, seeing that one of his students was harmed by these villains, as he would basically be going beyond his limits, defeating the Nomu the same way he does in canon, as Shigaraki calls the retreat. The guy who was the Xenomorph King retreats with him, as he says to All Might, this is not over. I will kill the queen. And when he says the queen, he is referring to Izumi, with him retreating into the portal as it closes, with the rest of the pros arriving, and Midnight seeing Aizawa in a state, because if I remember correctly, I said that Izumi was the daughter of Aizawa and Midnight. Now, Aizawa is still semi-conscious, and he saw that Izumi was knocked into the water zone, as when Midnight asks, where's Izumi, Aizawa points to the water zone, as Izumi is currently at the bottom. Now you guys don't panic. Izumi can breathe underwater. She's fine. As Sue would then dive into the... Mina dives into there, as she would be going to save Izumi. With her finding Izumi at the bottom, as she would basically pick her up from the bottom, as she would then begin to swim to the surface. As when she gets back to the surface, she is holding Izumi. She is currently holding Izumi, as Izumi is still breathing, but she is currently in a large amount of pain due to a few broken ribs. As Izumi is immediately rushed to the hospital, as Aizawa is also rushed there as well, as Midnight is currently having a panic attack. With all the other pros trying to at least calm her down, as she is currently worrying about both her husband and her child. With Izumi, with like a couple days passing, with Izumi, no a couple days, a couple of hours passing, with Izumi waking up in a very feared state. So like when you wake up from a nightmare in a cold sweat, that's basically what she is like right now. She's very afraid right now because she doesn't know where she is, as she would see that her mother, Midnight, was right next to her, and Aizawa was in the bed beside her. As she would be relieved that her father and mother were okay, but she is currently hurting from the broken ribs, as she would have thought back to that fight with the king, as she thought that his abilities were similar to hers, but his was more suited for a brawling type style, and he was a lot bulkier. And as she would think, I wonder who he is. As Shigaraki would be infuriated that the plan had failed, with All For One doing his call through the TV, stating not to worry, Shigaraki. We will get back to the heroes, and we will capture the queen. And that is where I'm going to finish this off. I do hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you all later today with part 3 to What If Female Deku Was the Armored Titan. So see you then.